Hello friends, and welcome back to Figure Study, where we are back with our Mecha Captain Dino stuff. This time specifically taking a look at Mecha Captain Dino 04 Brachiocannon. Take a wild guess as to what this one is. As I said with Stego Tank, I'm not particularly familiar with the show that all this is based on, but I think a couple of the toys are cool, specifically this and Stego Tank, so that's going to be the only two that I'm ever going to look at unless they come out with some stuff in the future that I think is cool. And they probably won't, because I think the toy line and show are done with at this point. But regardless, Brachiocannon is a quite big thing. I guess technically it qualifies as an octagon, because it's got the 8 sides, but it's not like it's not even. It's more like an oblong octagon, which sounds like a weird band name. Anyway, it's pretty much the same as Stego Tank. It looks fine from the front, and then when you start to turn it around, you see all the robot junk kind of hiding in there. Not even hiding, really, just kind of hiding behind the the emblem, symbol, shape, whatever. Though I do like how this one actually sits much better than Stego Tank. It can sit right side up. It actually leans back slightly on its own, which kind of works in a display sense. So yeah, I think Brachiocannon's shape mode does better than Stego Tank just based on that fact alone. The colors also work really nice here. Again, you've got that kind of black background with the texture going on that hits the light hits it just right. No matter how you look at it, it just catches light really nicely. Got the Brachiosaurus Skeleton that's painted a really nice silver, and this time you've got gold trim around the outside, but then you still have the red line with the 04 painted on it. And funny enough, on Stego Tank the numbers were raised slightly. Here it feels completely flat, so I don't know if it's a different approach, different paint scheme, if this is a tampograph and the other one is not. I don't know. And real quick, gonna bring in Stego Tank here so that we can kind of show off the two of them together, since Stego Tank doesn't like to stand up on its own. They work. Like, aesthetically, I think they work. They've got a similar vibe going. You've got obviously, that texture kind of draws everything together, as well as the colored dinosaur skeleton that is in whatever primary color the robot/dinosaur is in. I'm not entirely sure for the reasoning behind this. It could just be, you know, how they were feeling when designing this thing. It could be different depending on the character, but these are the only two I have. But it's just interesting to note how the red line goes behind the Stegosaurus skeleton, but it goes in front of the Brachiosaurus skeleton. It's probably just an aesthetic thing. I don't think there's any meaning behind it. But yeah, that's how those two look together. So let's get Stego Tank out of the way here so we can move on to our proper size comparisons. Brachiocannon is significantly larger than Stego Tank. I mean, you could see that already, just seeing the two of them side by side, but I feel like this kind of gets the point across too. Like, just the compacted shape mode of Brachiocannon is more or less as big as a leader class figure. More or less a Transformers leader class figure. It's big. And as you'd expect, Brachiocannon's shape mode also dwarfs the Duck Tank. Alright, so as is customary at this point, I'm going to be walking through the transformation on Brachiocannon rather than doing the sped up thing, because simpler toy and also not something that gets a whole lot of English coverage. This is just going to be the norm for the big Korean toys at this point, so hope you all understand. So, first and foremost, as before, we pop the shield thing off. And now, I will say up front, there are these little, you can see the little indentations here, these like chip things that come with Brachiocannon. I do have them, but I keep them in storage because it just unnecessarily weighs down the shield for a sound gimmick I never intend to use. So those normally would store back here, but I do not have them stored because they just weigh down the shield. They don't impede anything in any way. It's just, you know, all those little bits of plastic add some weight to it. So put that off to the side. Then we get to do some more parts forming here. So we pull these bits off the sides, pull this off there, and we're just going to move all this off to the side so we can focus on this chunky mass of whatever. So, going to rotate, or rather flip the fists up like that. Rotate these arms down. And now this is something that's cool. I didn't actually see it covered in most of the videos that I've seen myself, but you can telescope out the arms, but there are actually 2 different locking points. So, well, technically 3. So you've got the shape mode, the robot mode, and then that half click in is for the dinosaur mode. So you want to give that one pull down and then rotate those out. And then these bits here, you just pop them open and flip them out. And you can see you've actually already kind of got a dinosaur-ish shape going. So, I'm going to take this bit that we popped off the back, straighten that out, and the best way that I've remembered to know which way this clips on is the peg faces down, but another thing is you can actually see a very natural slope to the tail there. Flip this out to give the tail a little bit more length. This is how it shows it in the instructions and in the box, but personally, I think it looks kind of dumb having that tiny little point at the end, so I just leave it like that. And this, you can see these little red bits here, they actually slide in to these bits on the legs. So slide it in, and that will go into place. And then the red bits are actually on a little ratchet on their own, so they can move around. And now it's definitely starting to look like a dinosaur. Next, we take our 2 pieces from the, well, from the outside, from the shape, whatever. Now, the way that you want to orient it, you want to have this bit here, I guess this gap, which is where the chips would plug in, facing forward. And then you want this bit facing forward. And these will slide together similar to what happened with the tail. So just line it up, and there you go. And then that'll move, and then flip out the head. And lastly, this will kind of slot over here and then also clip in. So get all that lined up, push it in, and there we go. And here is... okay, give me a second. And here is Brachiocannon in his dinosaur mode, and I had to pull the camera out quite a bit for, I guess, comparison to how much he expands out versus his shape mode. There you go. he gets big, and that's not even him fully folded out yet. And you know what? I think I'm going to do the size comparisons now because this guy is going to be a pain to deal with. So just move him off to the side. And there he is with Stego Tank. And these look good together. I mean, his Brachiosaurus mode is nowhere near as perfect as Stego Tank's Stegosaurus mode, but they do look good together. I think this is a cohesive kind of style between the 2 of them. I like it. Here he is with Siege Hound, and yeah, big. Quite big. Quite big. And the Duck Tank. Okay, I'm going to readjust a bit because this guy's just too big to keep the camera pulled out this far the whole time. So now that we can see more of the details, you can see that he has what could be toes on his front feet there, which works. Of course, you see him from the side and it looks like curled up fists a bit, but it's okay. Some nice silver and gold detailing here. All this stuff is also mostly going to be visible in robot mode, so I'm kind of going to gloss over it here. But some nice detailing throughout. You've got what could almost pass for feet shapes right there. And of course that tail, which just something about the way this tail slopes that I just really like. It just works. And going up here, the neck, you've got more of that silver and gold combination with red highlights. And the head, which is not cooperating. Hang on. And the head. I think it almost looks like they gave him sharp teeth, which is silly. And As is important for any Brachiosaurus, he has the little head crest thing. So that's how you know. It is spring-loaded. It won't stay down, but that is kind of neat because this is definitely, it gets in the way if you go into shape mode, so this being able to push in like that is what enables it to fit in the shape mode. And it's a nicely shaped head, and I like how they've got this kind of cheek detailing here, which actually does mirror the cheek detailing that you can see in Stego Tank. Well, not mirror, but it's reminiscent of. Though it is interesting, Brachiocannon has pupilless eyes. I think the eyes look good. I like that sky blue for the eyes, but Stego Tank actually has pupils, so I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's just how they decided to design them for the show. Maybe it's something else. It's just an interesting difference in my mind. There's not a whole lot else to the Dino Mode head. There's like this bit of grid, kind of, not grid, but like this ridginess kind of here, which I think that's kind of neat how the pattern kind of continues up the nose and up the crest there. Yeah. That is more or less it for the Dinosaur Mode. I will say, I know some people have taken issue with the back legs because they are very simple. And I get that, but at the same time, for me, it doesn't bother me at all because this is entirely in service of giving him a proper long-neck dinosaur silhouette. And yeah, he doesn't really have much in the way of back legs, but this totally reads as a hip, and this totally reads as a foot, even though it's just a flat flap that folds out. I feel like you're not really paying attention to that too much, so it all kind of works as a cohesive whole. Yes, it's a kind of simple and basic way around the issue, but I feel like for what it is, it's actually kind of clever. And I mean, this is a, you know, as I explained with Stego Tank, I see these things more as Sentai-style toys, so the lack of posability in the rear legs doesn't really bother me at all, because I feel like the entire idea is you transform it into a dinosaur just so that it's a big dinosaur and has a really cool shelf presence. And this has that. So, with that all out of the way, now that this guy's become so difficult to keep on camera, let's turn him into his robot mode, where hopefully he will be a little bit easier to keep on camera. Maybe. I don't know. So, we are basically just going to rip his stuff off again, so I'm going to pop off the dino head and neck, fold this in and straighten this out, pop off the tail, as you do, and this actually will kind of straighten out like that, flip out this handle, and then this bit will actually slide in here, and this creates the cannon for Brachiocannon. And with the head folded in, you actually get a cannon end, which is cool. I like that. It works for me. And this, the head crest can almost look like a sight or something like that. I think it's cool. Now for the central mast, we're going to flip these back in and peg them down. You can see the little peg there. Just make sure those go down. The legs unclip and straighten out. The feet fold down. And there are heel spurs, which is great. Heel spurs are always great, especially with large toys. And to unclip the legs and open them up. Then pull this out the rest of the way and rotate the bicep around. Well, not bicep, the forearm around. Flip down the fist. Extend, rotate. Okay, now this is on this kind of accordion system, so you actually want to bring it up to where it's a bit more properly aligned. So here you can see you've got the original position, new position for robot mode. So it does actually bring the shoulder up quite a bit. So stretch that out and bring it up like so. Of course, now his arms are a bit awkward, so I like to bring him out a click just to help with that. And then you can open his fists a little bit, open his fingers, which definitely goes a long way to making these look more like actual fists. If they cooperate, there we go. So now that this is all set, now comes the fun part. Push this button in the middle, and three things will happen. These bits come out a bit more. Clip those up a little bit more. So these bits come out, and actually you can see there, they bulk out the chest more, which is great, and the head pops up. And that's cool. That's a neat little effect. The main thing that bugs me about this is I kind of wish that these bits could, like, at least soft click in place when they come out, because it's really easy to push them back in. And sometimes if I'm messing with them, I might accidentally, like, partially clip one in, and it just looks a little weird. And as you can see, it's also, like, trying to, like, there you go. Like, if I'm trying to do this, I could accidentally click that in, and now it's clicked in on that side, and yeah. I think the mechanism here could have done with a little bit more work, but regardless, there we have Brachiocannon in robot mode, and this looks great. I honestly am super into this robot mode, and I don't know that I'd necessarily say he is my favorite out of him and Stego Tank, but he's easily my second favorite in the entire Captain Dino line. So, coloration-wise, the first thing that really stuck out to me about Brachiocannon is that whole silver, gold, white, and black with a little bit of red color scheme. Primarily the whole silver with gold accents. It's a very, very striking and very cool color combination, and it actually reminds me of, it's whatever the final mecha is for Kyoryuger. I think it's Brachiosaurus. But yeah, like, I always liked the coloring and style of that guy, but I didn't really want any of the Kyoryuger stuff because, well, both cost and the fact that I hear the clips have a tendency to break, and I just did not want to deal with that. But this works really well and is reminiscent of that enough that I'm totally into it. Particularly that chest. That chest plate is kind of a big draw for me. But overall, this guy looks great. He's got a not particularly bulky silhouette, but he still looks powerful. I guess primarily because he's got a, pretty decently sized chest. Definitely looks like someone you would want to mess with. And he pulls off the color scheme really well. And starting from the bottom, got his feet, which have these little ridges on the tips, which I just think are kind of fun. And it adds a little bit of color to the feet too. And there's actually a fair bit of texture molded into the feet, and the whole thing, really. Still love that color combination. I love how the Brachiosaurus feet fold in to make knee pads, and they don't read as feet anymore. It's a neat little touch. And the thighs, not a lot going on there, but you do get some molding. And the hip skirts, it's got that gray and black combination, which is nice. And it's also nice that there are hip skirts, so he's got better leg articulation than Stego Tank. Little button for his belt buckle. It's totally fine. I think that's nice that it's kind of called out there. I like the little red outline. And still more molding. Kind of like a armor-plated, riveted kind of thing going on there. And that chest plate, I really love the two Brachiosaurus heads kind of staring off against each other. That gold on the gray there looks so good. And gold and black is just a nice color combination regardless. For the shoulders, I like the alternating designs where you've got the Brachiosaurus Skeleton on one side and then the O4 on the other. And the arms, they're kind of nondescript, but I like the silver knuckle duster looking design on the fist, and also this kind of piston sticking off there. I don't really know what the purpose is, but it looks cool. And the molding is nice. And one thing that did kind of put me off at first with this guy, let me adjust here, is the fact that the way that his shoulders are set up, the connection is down here. So when you turn it, his entire shoulder is suddenly like at his back, which is one thing that's a little bit like eh. But the other thing is kind of, you've got gappage going on back there, which is a shame, but I'm not entirely sure how else they could have designed it, except maybe have this come out to fit the shape more, but then it would get in the way of the shape mode and the Brachiosaurus mode, so I don't really know. And really, I found that by bringing the arms out this way, it kind of mitigates that. It still makes the shoulders look natural overall, especially when he's standing on a shelf. And by bringing him out, it also means that the weight of his accessories doesn't usually cause problems. Usually. That's one of the reasons why I took the chips out of the shield. Anyway, Moving on to the head. The head is interesting. I'm not entirely sure if this is a deviation from the rest of the Captain Dino figures and characters, or if this is something that's common and Stego Tank is the outlier, but the head, it's not super like that's a dinosaur head as a helmet. Like if you look closely, you can see there's like an eye molded right there, and you do still get the head bump and some ridges going along the back there. But this looks like more of a helmet with the telltale Brachiosaurus bump rather than a stylized Brachiosaurus head as a helmet. Yeah, make of that what you will. I don't dislike it. It's just a bit of an outlier. But I do think the intention was there, because as I said, you can kind of see a little molded eye there. And I do like this black and gold wraparound bit around the outside of the helmet. It's just a really nice contrast. Looks good from the front because it adds a little bit more color. Looks good from the side. It just looks good. I also like the little kind of gas mask looking bits sticking off the mouth plate, I guess. I can't quite tell if his mouth is covered or if that's his mouth right there. Doesn't bother me particularly. It's just kind of hard to tell. The face is not particularly detailed. There's nothing really there that I think is all that noteworthy. However, I do think that he's got those very nice light blue eyes, which are the same as the light blue eyes for the Brachiosaurus mode, so that's cool. I definitely like his eyes better than Stego Tank's. His eyes pop much better. And yeah, taken as an overall robot Brachiocannon, looks cool. He definitely looks cool, as I've said. Anyway, moving on to the accessories. I'm going to bring in the shield here, and this, technically, I suppose you could attach it to either hand because he does have a flip-down handle, but it's really meant to go on this arm because you've got this big old peg here that can flip out and around, and that will slide in here and keep it secure in his shoulder, and then the handle just kind of slides into his fist. And that is the shield. And by bringing the arm out an extra click, then that kind of keeps the shoulder from sagging a little bit too much. It just keeps that kind of looking like it's connected, which I prefer. If you have the chips in there, it weighs it down way more and gets in the way. As for the cannon, that goes into his arm, but this is another thing that I've seen get missed a lot, is there's actually that peg there that we use to determine the orientation of the tail in Dinosaur Mode will actually peg into this hole on the shoulder. So by sliding the handle in and then pushing the peg in, that keeps this from flopping around while you, pose the figure and whatnot. Of course, if you aim it forward, he will kind of pitch. I mean, the arm holds the weight, which is great, but he's he's on borrowed time if you're doing that. Though, if you click the legs back a bit, that'll give him the stability he needs. And there you can see he's pretty darn stable. And that works. That totally works for me. Though, due to shelf space and whatnot, I prefer to just have the cannon kind of down at his side. But still, he looks good. He looks good with his stuff. So let's move him as far back and over as we can so we can bring in our other size comparisons and wrap this video up. There he is with Stego Tank, and he's definitely noticeably bigger than Stego Tank, but because a decent amount of his mass is in this cannon, it's not as pronounced a difference. There's still clearly a difference, but not as pronounced. And what's interesting here is, like, the aesthetic between them works, like the overall idea of like the angles and the shapes and stuff like that, like the different design cues, they all work together. You can tell they're kind of part of the same universe at least. But they have completely different aesthetics in terms of like what their look is patterned after. As I said with Stego Tank, he seems to have kind of like a samurai kimono thing going with the way that the shoulders are shaped and kind of come in at that triangular angle, and like the blue and the red and black in the torso there just kind of have that look to me. And then Brachiocannon seems to have almost, and it could be just assuming this because of the color scheme, but it almost seems to have more of like a medieval knight look to it in terms of the shape of the armor and helmets and whatnot. I still think it's cool either way, but yeah, just an observation. And I'm sure this comes as no surprise, but Brachiocannon absolutely dwarfs Siege Hound. It's not quite as tall in terms of just, from floor up, or from surface up in robot mode as he is in Dino mode, but he's still quite big. And the Duck Tank. And yeah, I think that is about all I can say about Brachiocannon. There's just a lot of little things I like about this guy, and especially the overall color scheme. Definitely cool. Still think I prefer Stego Tank of the two, but I like them both a lot. Oh, and one other thing, well, a couple other things. With regards to the shield, it's designed to split so that you can attach it to the gun here, but one thing that I sometimes like to do is just kind of rotate it around on this hinge up here so that it almost looks like a one-arm like cape thing. I don't know, I think it's kind of a neat option. And since I feel like people will get upset if I don't show this off, let's take the cannon here and move him off to the side real quick. And here, there's actually a port here for the thing to plug into as well. So this will plug in, and then you can do stuff like prop up the cannon. You can split this to do that. You can rotate it this way. You can do it up. Like, there are lots of different things you can do with this bit. I don't really see much of a point, but the option is there. And also, I wanted to acknowledge this because I forgot to mention it earlier in the video, but there are electronics in this neck. I have taken the batteries out because I find noises that I can inadvertently set off at a moment's notice to be annoying, and that button is like very centrally located when trying to put them together. So, yeah. It just makes like a blasting noise and a dinosaur noise, and then depending on the chips you slot in there, it can make different sound effects, but it just seems kind of silly. I don't care enough to mess around with them, and you've got this giant thing sticking off the top, and if you use it as a neck, then it's sticking out this way, and it's just kind of weird. So yeah, not really a fan of that. Though, since I am covering accessories, I might as well mention this too. In terms of alternate shield storage, he does actually technically have some, although I don't think it's intentional. If you look on his back, he's got this little clip system here, and there is one there. And this is designed for the tail to clip on when you go into shape mode, but if you rotate that cylinder up, there's just enough room that you can kind of fudge it and clip that into the back there, and then you can store the shield on his back. So it is a thing you can do. You can't flare out the sides to make it like a cape or wings or anything like that because the clip is attached to one side of the thing, so basically you would just be able to like do that. Though I guess you could do that and pretend he's Sephiroth or something, I don't know. But the option is there. And then I almost forgot to show this off as well. I'm sorry, I'm not used to showing off the accessories. But you can store the cannon on his back as well. You've got a clip there, little clip there, and voila, he can store the cannon on his back. And that's not bad. I will admit, that is not bad. It's just not my preferred way of displaying him. Okay, now I am done. That is it for Mecha Captain Dino 04 Brachiocannon. And as I've said multiple times, I do really like this guy. He's definitely got his issues, and I feel like he's got a few more issues than Stego Tank, mostly because of the way his shoulders and torso section function, but they can be worked around. It's not that bad. And yeah, he is cool. He is very cool. He is obviously my second favorite of the 2 Captain Dino figures that I have, but as I've said before, I don't really intend on getting the other 3. But what do you all think of Brachiocannon? As with Stego Tank, is this the first time you're really getting any exposure to Captain Dino stuff? Or if you are familiar with it, what do you think of the toys in general? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. And while you're at it, also feel free to like or subscribe. Any of those things would make me a happy Rob. And remember, art is more than meets the eye.